I have no idea when we're live, so tell me, please.
All right, we are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's daily brief. We are about halfway through our crazy Vancouver 2019 TRI meetup. Tons of great interactions with the community. We got like about 20 or 30 of us, all just trying to pace ourselves to get ourselves through the week. Great time though, and I gotta say, fantastic relationships being made. Everybody who is in Vancouver and at the TRI meetup, watch out for Bowser. Everybody who went racing yesterday should understand that reference. A lot of fun. Poor old Sjord. Everybody give Sjord a hug. He took one for the team yesterday, but a lot of fun. And actually, it's kind of cool. We've got both the mayor. How you doing this morning, Mr. Mayor?
Hey, Brian. I'm first of all, of course, a little envious to not be with you guys, right? But I'm moving myself in, I guess, a couple of days to Los Angeles already. So, yeah, a little stressful. But apart from that, I can't complain, I guess.
It's interesting how so many of us are moving. And I, for some crazy reason, I decided to move and do the TRI meetup at the same time. So I can totally empathize with you. Quite stressful to do the move thing.
Yeah.
So. But great that we have you on the call here this morning, and just hearing your voice, it's almost like, just a little bit of stability. I remember that wonderful voice of Alex's. So thank you for being on the call this morning and taking the time to help us out here today. Totally appreciate it. And if I'm not mistaken, we have the bear, Thomas, on the call this morning. How are you doing this morning, Thomas?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Thomas, Thomas worked his magic with Airbnb yesterday, and he upgraded his facilities dramatically. So I think the crew that was staying in Thomas's house, the couple's house, I think they were very appreciative of your hard effort. So way to go, sir. But if I'm not mistaken, I think we have quite a bit of material to cover here. In the market, and actually we had a really cool algo buy signal in Bitcoin yesterday. Everybody at the meetup last night, we were looking at charts and algo signals and stuff like that, and it was just the most beautiful little double bottom. So I think we got lots to talk about here today. So where do you want to start the adventure today, Mr. Bear? What should we look at first?
Well, let's start off with today's Fed day, and the markets are pretty muted to start off the day, waiting for the announcement starting at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock our time where we are. So we got another 2 hours before that comes out, and I expect things to be very calm, if you will, before the storm. So not much happening. We can see how the markets are setting up, but I don't see anything particularly interesting to really talk about trade-wise in the broader market other than stuff that I'm doing, which seems to be working out, but I have to come up with a plan here going into Fed, because not only is that going to rock the markets, but I'm also going to be climbing up the grouse grind, which is evidently quite the hike. And I don't know if I can even, I'll probably actually stream the Fed meeting while I'm climbing up this thing so I can listen to what's going on. But nonetheless,
that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And actually, what's kind of cool is we have actually two activities today. So for those that are a little bit lazy, like Brian, we're going to do a leisurely bike ride through Stanley Park. And those that are active and kicking butt, like Thomas, you're going to go climb a mountain today. So totally awesome. So look forward to lots of pictures and lots of reports back from the mountainside. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, so what's the dollar doing before Fed decision? Well, we're still trying to move to new highs. Not quite a new high print today, but Willie is moving into overbought conditions. And this is not quite a bearish divergence just yet. We need to pop the top here for that to be true. I'm expecting, as stated yesterday, that kind of knee-jerk reaction higher as the Fed announces the cut. And depending on announcements of stimulus programs that could also move this thing as well. So I'll be watching this and how the rest of the markets react. But the thing that I'm really fascinated to see is that gold has been quite strong despite the US dollar strength. See, gold's riding the 13 EMA here. We're sitting at about 1427. We tagged 1430 into the open today. I think the high was 1434. So gold is really, really strong in the face of a strong dollar, which is really, really interesting. The pound has actually bottomed a bit off that 121 level. I think Brian said that was a really nice level to be going long off of yesterday. So that was a nice call by you. What else is going on? I mean, again, stock markets are pretty flat. I guess maybe I could talk about a few of the trades that I'm doing, but it's not really anything that any level 3er should really be doing. It was funny, we were talking about synthetic positions yesterday as far as high delta options with Alex and Murat yesterday. And there was one that I was looking to get into. I think it was this Vivo. This might have been, who was telling me about Vivo? I know Sjord was like, I bought this one a while ago. I think Murat was in this one yesterday also, but this one broke out on a daily perspective. This is Meridian Biosciences. I haven't had any time to do any FA on them, but you know, the coolest part about meeting up with everybody here is we're all a whole bunch of brilliant minds coming together and exchanging ideas, and the value that we're all creating by joining kind of our minds together is really unparalleled. I mean, this is really powerful stuff for all of us to be here, and hey, we all got a trade idea. This is Vivo. You can see the nice market structure bottom, moving average cross. This one looks pretty interesting. You can see the gaps up top here, up at 13 bucks. This thing's sitting at 12 right now, broke out from 11.50. So this was a cool idea here that I'm playing through options. I actually bought or I'm bidding. Let me see if I even got filled. I'm bidding on the $10 calls that expire in October. So I'm definitely not going by a traditional TRISOF, but I am buying $10 calls that I'm trying to pay $1.75 for. So I'm wondering if I got filled, because $10 calls at $1.75, theoretically that price should have gone down to $1.62 with those 85% deltas, but I didn't actually get filled, unfortunately. So I'm not in that position, but there's certainly other ways of playing this, and I would assume there might even be an SOF on something like this. So go wild. If this fits your trading plan, great. If not, just don't, you know, at least there was an idea there. So that's Vivo. And I am also, let's see, my quick trades, just to get this out of the way, is I went short Pepsi. I bought the very short dated puts on this, so I'm a bit of a wild man. I've got the October 125 put, and I'm looking for this to come down. And of course, my fibs are not saved here, but I am looking for this to extend the downward move here. Got a bit of a bearish divergence working, and I'm looking for this to tag maybe the 200 period moving average down at the 50% level. And it's trying to reverse here. You can see the candle patterns coming in are bearish. The 13 EMA was acting as resistance. So I was a fan of this one. My target again down at 50%. And then the next one is, I finally got in on this Schlumberger. I went long on this name from, I didn't go long, I bought calls. I bought the September 20th, 2019 $35 calls. I paid $4.65. And right now they're trading at $5.65. So I've got a bit of time premium baked in, but you know, I looked at this chart. I like the way this thing bounced off of 61.8. And I'm trading a little bit differently than most people would be learning the level 1 and level 2. I'm more of a gunslinger, but you can see the potential for this one. So if you are interested in this, make sure you wait for your signals and your trading plan. Brian would say this is a terrible trading location. I can hear it from upstairs here, even though we're not sitting across from each other, but maybe wait for that market structure there. And the other thing is, of course, this is in the face of a bearish divergence that's confirmed, and it's trying to rally off 38.2. So I like what that looks like as well. My targets for this are just a quick pop to the top around $42, $43. That'll give my option worth about $7, maybe $8, maybe a little more if we can do it in the next couple of weeks with a time premium baked in. So I'm watching those closely. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. I'm kind of, in and out of looking at charts and trying to have a good time at the same time that I am trading. But I'm going to hand it over to you, Brian. What are you seeing anything specific? I know you're busy. I can't imagine you've got, any kind of, are you in any trades right now?
Trades, not really per se. I've sort of put everything on the. Am I muted right now? I don't even know if I'm.
Nope, I can hear you. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah, I said heading into the TRI meetup, I just sort of squared everything up trade wise, so I don't really have anything pressing. And I suppose if Zach is around, we've got all the little options plays and all the appropriate open orders working. So I haven't heard from Zach. I don't know whether we got any fills off of that account, but my hunch is no. I suppose we could just do a quick overview of the broader markets heading into this sort of Fed announcement. A couple of things that caught my eye. US dollar index, of course, still moving higher here. Really don't think it's a good idea to do anything ahead of the Fed. Just let it happen. Don't trust the first hour until after the event, and then we'll see what happens. My hunch is, you can almost see the liquidity pool that they're going after here. This high right here, you can see that cute little wick up top. So there's a whole bunch of trapped bulls up in there that would love to get released. My hunch is they're going to actually blast those highs there and go after that liquidity pool right up in there. But we'll see how it goes. And if we do an AB equals CD, I think that pretty much lines up into that level. And maybe we will talk about stocks in a moment, but what really caught my attention is this bond market looks very interesting here. Again, probably not a really good idea to put a trade on ahead of the Fed, let it happen. But you can see cute little AB equals CD is probably going to take us up into this sort of candle body peak level right up in there, wicks and tails. And actually, Alex this morning was showing me Alex B. And actually, I'm operating off of Alex's computer. I mean, he's so generous. This guy's an absolute superhero. And he also brought me some Vlad Dracul's blood. I've got it sitting beside my bed right now. It's actually a national drink of Romania, right? So, but anyway, he was showing me earlier that he's running the Sierra charts. Is it Sierra charts, the harmonics software? And he's just like, this is ridiculous. They're just like pinpointing levels. So I think what you ought to do is fire up the Sierra charts and look for. I can see the harmonic forming here, and my hunch is your harmonic is going to give you a signal like right in that area, right against those candle body highs and that previous peak right in there. I can almost see it. It looks like a I don't know whether it's a bat or a Gartley, but my hunch is do the Sierra charts on that thing. I think you'll get a really interesting level there. Of course, like we said, don't do anything ahead of the Fed. You're just asking for trouble. It is interesting, though, and what this might do is it might actually set something up. And I don't know whether anybody at TRI actually trades bonds. But, if you are advanced in the program and you can consider options, we could probably take a look at something like the TLTs. Let's see if I can do this. I'm not sure. Again, I'm working off of Alex B's computer. Absolute superhero, but I might screw this up. So actually here, let's do a little trivia question. Dun, dun, dun. Is there any candle pattern that we should be thinking if we see a doji and then the market gaps higher the next day? I just basically gave you the answer. And actually, it did it here as well. So it sure looks to me like the bond market wants up. And I've only got one screen on, so I can't see what the response on YouTube or in the lounge is. But hopefully, everybody went doji gap, doji gap. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? So, and actually, if you measure this distance of the doji bar with the gapping bar, right, that target should paint right somewhere right up in that area there, which is going to be your harmonic. against those candle body highs, against that previous high right there. It's weird. I guess after a while you do this, you can sort of almost see these things setting themselves up ahead of time. Now it might be something like the Fed comes out in their statement and they say they're concerned about economic growth, blah 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 blah, and the bonds go shooting up, sort of knee-jerk reaction on that statement. And then afterward, they go, okay, well, maybe that's it, and that's the end of the move, and it sets up, like in the next couple of days, just an absolutely incredible shorting opportunity. So keep that in mind, and as I said, probably over the next week or so, we'll probably take a look. I might even be interested in hunting like a TLT put option on this, because I think there might actually be some half decent money to be made here. I don't know how time-wise I'm doing. I'm probably talking way too much as always. Sorry, everybody. Let's try and keep this train moving forward. Now, this is something that jumped out at me, holy for holies. But this is interesting, right? Because our correlation study, right? We have bonds, and I think Thomas found somebody who liked to watch the inverse of the 10-year yield. Is that right, Thomas? Something like that?
Yeah, it's the inverse 10-year yield. And, remember a couple of weeks ago, we were just like, why are they using that, not just the TLT? So I threw that on the chart too.
Yeah, you could just throw like the bond chart on, right? Just the prices of bonds. But notice how the bond's moving up, and we're talking about a harmonic, right? Sort of buy the rumor on the Fed announcement. And we are just flirting with those candles. What chart you're looking at in particular. I personally like to follow the futures markets. Good old crazy Brian and his futures. But you notice that we talked about these highs, and we talked about candle body highs, and we talked about trap bulls and bears the other day. Notice how we gapped violently higher here, and now we're sort of stalling. So let's keep an eye on how the gold acts through this Fed announcement. With that monstrous gap there, though, that looks very suspicious to me. Maybe what happens is we get a move up, like liquidity hunt. If it can't get through those highs, and like the bond market, we start actually like maybe inside bar or something like that. Holy for holies, that could be one hell of a trade. But that's actually not the market that's got my attention right at the moment. Check this out. Holy moly. When I saw this just before we started, I almost pooped my pants. Look at that M that's potentially coming in on the silver. Oh boy, this looks dangerous. In fact, it looks almost to the point where I'm almost tempted to start going and hunting put option ideas. So if we go like line chart, hopefully you can see. Hello. Are we supposed to be thinking about anything in particular if we ever see the market starting to smile at us? Oh boy, that looks dangerous. Oh boy, what was that? Did you just hear that? Oh, I just heard something go, oh, snap in the background. Is that you, Thomas? Are you okay?
Yeah, people are just coming in and saying good morning.
Okay, cool. That's good. So this silver market looks really dangerous. Now, the good part about this, though, is that maybe this is cleaning itself up ahead of the Fed announcement. If the market is perfectly happy, hunky-dory, and we're a bull, then this will be a trap, and the market will come back up, paint inside bar, and continue higher. I think as we sort of, the general rule, don't trust the market heading into the Fed, and really I would suggest to everybody, don't get too excited about a trade idea for at least a good full hour after the Fed announcement. But wow, does that ever look dangerous there, folks. I'll tell you. That looks very, very toppy. And if we, I'm not necessarily saying silver's going off the board, but if we just do very simple things like 50% rules, and actually I was even talking to people about this yesterday. In fact, who was it? It was Johnny Salmon. We were chatting yesterday, and he's building fundamental screens for a website because another gentleman does TA screens, automated TA screens. And we were going through the Cancelim model, and we were saying, you know, build your fundamental screen universe and then run the TA models off of that screened universe. And we were walking through just a very simple model of, okay, where's the 50% rule? There's the, oops, oh, Brian, I can get to do this. Fingers crossed. All right, so there's the 50% rule. Excuse my, don't I? What? I'm such a knucklehead. Okay, that's all good. 50% rule. So the question really, and Johnny, this is exactly what we were talking about last night. So if you're watching this video, MTOP. So the question is, for my trade, is this window from the MTOP down to the 50% rule, is that at least twice the size of the risk that you're going to take to trade the M? Now, you know, whether you actually hit the M or whether you wait for reload zones after the M confirms, that's entirely up to you as an individual trader. Do you hunt like, you know, candle body highs, those kind of things? But the long and short of it is really, you know, what's the size of the risk that you're going to take on the trade relative to the size of the potential reward? And everybody at TRI should look at this and, wow, you know, I don't know what opinions are, you know. Everybody's got one, and I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but statistically, that's starting to look like a ratio that as traders, we have to start really getting interested in. Long and short of it here, if I risk a buck, am I going to get paid substantially more if a very natural 50% retracement happens versus me getting stopped out if the MTOP gets broken? So that really jumped out at me this morning. And Johnny Salmon, if you're watching this, remember, and actually remember we even joked, right? Because we were kind of half in the bag. So he was feverishly typing away on his cell phone all the little rules, the statistical rules of the model that we talked out. So we were going to go back and look at what he actually typed and whether he could understand anything. But that's exactly what we were talking about last night. That is a really, really good example of that. So anyway, holy moly, Brian sure blabs away too much. Sorry, everybody. So gold and silver looking a little, you know, I would have to say I'm sorry. And I know some people in the community don't like this, but this is typical seasonality. We should actually be rallying in the stocks right through to probably the first or second week of September. So let's see how that goes. Of course, our thesis that the bonds and the gold and silver top, then we could actually see the stocks just take off here. And really that would, in my opinion, be all about the NASDAQ. And does the NASDAQ take off here? Did I do that right? NQ. Oh, did that wrong. NQ. Let's see what good old NASDAQ's doing. Looks like, while that chart's loading, looks like, and actually this crude chart is looking a lot like that US dollar chart we had. Do you think maybe you could just refrain from running the water just while the call's on? Thank you. I guess for a while we were talking about the US dollar. Something is brewing here. Is it going to be one of these things where the Americans and the Iranians start saber rattling again? I don't know, but I definitely think something is brewing here in the crude market. Don't really necessarily have a trade idea there. There was a really cute little W there, but for the time being, yeah, you can see, and you can also go 1, 2, 3 off of these highs as well. And really we could, Alex was just pointing out that we have this very powerful uptrend line here with 3 tests of it. You know, I don't think there's a trade right now, but on a break of this, kind of like what we saw with the US dollar, it broke its coil to the upside and it's doing its AB equals CD. Can you also see this bigger oil. So something's about to happen in crude oil, everybody. Just be cognizant of that. Is it, and I don't even know, do we have any news about any hurricanes or anything like that forming in the Gulf of Mexico? I haven't really looked at any maps, but we should probably keep an eye on that as well. But you can see something's coming in crude, so be careful, everybody. Okay, so that's all those markets. Looking at stocks, and actually something really jumped out at me. And I don't know, do we want to look at stocks? What time is it? I probably spent too much time talking here today.
We're already at the bottom half of the hour, so.
What time is it? Okay, so it is half past. I'll leave the stock conversations for now. I do like sort of news summaries and stuff. You're saying Backed and all that kind of stuff was rocking and rolling now?
Yeah, so we've got some issues with connectivity, so I'm not sure how much, everybody's hearing me or you, but as far as...
really?
Yeah, I think it's just these 1 second cutouts with Brian, but it's not too bad, right? And you seem to be pretty clear, Thomas. So.
Okay, Brian was cutting out for like 5 seconds for me, so if I cut out... Sorry. And it seems like I'm getting packet loss, but you guys can still hear me?
Yeah.
That's fucking weird. Okay. All right, so then let's start off with some news, and hopefully all that comes out clear. Let's get rid of this window. I've got quite a few articles to share. Let's see, where do we start here? Okay, so Bitcoin is ludicrously underpriced, ex-Goldman Sachs executive. According to this, and please follow, try to follow me.
Oh, yeah, I don't know whether you can hear me, but
we just lost you. Thomas?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this, you know what, let me switch to the 5G here. Give me a second.
While Thomas is doing that, I'll just quickly go over something that I saw in the charts yesterday, and this was so cool. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, did you have something to say?
Well, I was just going to review the...
So, Brian, you're cutting out again.
Okay, so this is going to be fun. How am I sounding?
You're clear, so...
Okay, I'm going to go through the article then. So ex-Goldman Sachs is talking about Bitcoin being underpriced. He was on this Real Vision podcast with Raoul Pal, and this guy was talking about trying to understand the digitization of everything and understanding the market cap and trying to recreate a low probability of global money supply, global debt in combination with digital money. And he basically comes out with some number that shows that Bitcoin is massively underpriced. I honestly couldn't follow this guy's logic. He said, if it's worth $1 trillion, then it's currently worth 200 billion. So there's a chance of 1% working out, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, this guy sees Bitcoin going to new highs along with lots of other people. So we're seeing all these bullish articles come out, and I thought I would share just that ex-Goldman Sachs.
What are we supposed to think if we ever hear Goldman Sachs tell us something?
Well, yeah, right. Even the ex-Goldman guys, right?
Be careful, everybody. Take that opinion with a big grain of salt.
Yeah, especially because I really couldn't even follow this guy's logic. It was a bit odd. But anyway, next article here.
Kind of a funny story. I'll be really quick here. I remember there was like the summer, oh God, I can't even remember what year it was. But literally Goldman Sachs came out and said that Netflix revenue was going to explode because they were adding Canada to their subscriptions, and they were, you got to buy this stock. And like literally within a week or two, the stock like was down like 20-30% from those highs. So just be careful with anything that Goldman Sachs publicly says. But I do understand you said this was an ex-Goldman Sachs guy. So
it doesn't matter. I mean, Steve Mnuchin is ex-Goldman Sachs, and look where he ended up, right?
Well, and that's the irony of it all, is that almost every single U.S. Treasury official going back probably the last 20-30 years has actually come from Goldman Sachs. So just goes to show who actually is running the show down in the U.S. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. Sorry to interrupt. I'll go back on mute. Please continue.
Nice little
sir.
story there. So we've got Bitcoin peaking above the search terms for over stock.
All right, Thomas, you are cutting in and out for me. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I can.
As long as it's like 1 or 2 seconds, right? I think we just keep on going.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to log into the router later and see if we can't free up something for tomorrow's show, because this is a pain. Okay, so Bitcoin is peaking above stocks for search terms. This article is suggesting that people are more interested in searching for Bitcoin than buying your traditional stocks. But if you kind of think about the generation that is going to be interested in investing, they have a sour taste in their mouth from the 2008 crash, and it makes sense that they're more interested in Bitcoin, especially for the last few years when people were talking about stocks going to crash, and they really haven't crashed yet. But nonetheless, interesting trend here with Bitcoin peaking over stocks. Next thing is this article about everything you need to know about the Litecoin happening. I think everybody at this meetup already knows everything they need to know about it, which is, it seems like the majority of us used our profits from this potential rise in price, what was it, 6 months ago, to pay for our trip. So this worked out quite nicely. But the article talks about the halving's happening on August 5th. So I think that would be next Wednesday. Is this going to impact price? I mean, I think it already did impact price. And this article talks about Litecoin and the last time the halving happened. So that was on August 25th, 2015. Litecoin jumped 350% in anticipation, but then they were wiped out by the time the drop in rewards came after the halving, and then the price flatlined for months. And now they're talking about the same thing happening here, where the price of Litecoin went from $31 to $141, which is a 450% increase, and then dropped 35%, and now it seems to be flatlining again. The article talks about Charlie Lee warning everyone not to be buying because all of the anticipated price movements because of the halving have already been baked into the price. And he publicly came out and said, be careful. And of course, Charlie Lee sold all of his Litecoins at the high in 2017, and still no evidence of him jumping back in to buy his Litecoins. Yeah, sorry about this, guys. You're gonna have to deal with the cutting in and out until tomorrow. Next thing here, we talked about this yesterday with the Congressional Banking Committee meeting, where they were talking about cryptocurrencies. I talked about Senator Crapo here. He's the senator out of Idaho, or this is the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. And he basically came out and said that it's pretty much impossible for the US government to ban Bitcoin. And he thinks that it's going to be impossible to keep it under control, and basically believes that regulation is better than just coming out and banning the thing. So he said, I'm pretty confident we couldn't succeed in doing that because this is a global innovation. And he says it runs wherever the internet runs, and these have a monetary policy where the algorithms are algorithmically generated, talking about cryptocurrencies being open source software and existing on the internet. So again, this idea that these guys in government, these guys that are like 60, 70 years old, who, you know, if you remember I'm a flip phone guy in a Bitcoin world, they're starting to get it. They're starting to understand what cryptocurrency kind of represents, and they're understanding the potential that it has to not only bring jobs into the country and stimulate innovation, but also potential liquidity draws and really just bettering whatever they think that Facebook has destroyed in terms of privacy. So that's really interesting to see these guys coming around. Next article, which I think is probably our most important article of the day, is that LedgerX launched their physical Bitcoin futures product today in the US. So if you are a US citizen, all you need is a driver's license or ID, and you can start trading futures contracts for real Bitcoin. Obviously, this is a physically settled product. They beat backed to the punch here. They're using this Omni platform, whereas institutional clients are using within the line can trade as any of the LedgerX. Okay, so they can trade any of the other LedgerX products. So I mean, I'm going to check this out. I didn't have time between when I saw this and when the show started, but this is pretty interesting to me. I'm interested in checking out how it works. The other interesting thing is that you don't actually need to transfer US dollars into the account. You can transfer Bitcoin into the account. Now, remember, this is a US-based exchange, so there's going to be KYC, and if you transfer your Bitcoin into the exchange, one of the questions is going to be, where does your Bitcoin come from? So remember that when you're going to be participating in this, that you are going to have to tell them how you made your firstborn child, in addition to where you make your money from and what you ate for dinner when you're participating in these products. But this is great. I think this is a fantastic on-ramp for institutions. And I even saw an article earlier that said that the reason for the rise happening over the last few weeks, according to, if anyone knows who Willy Woo is, he's here on Twitter. This guy does a lot of analysis as far as money flows into the crypto market. And he says that a lot of the flows here, and I couldn't find the tweet quickly enough, but he believes that a majority of the money flowing into Bitcoin, specifically over the last few weeks, is a institutional-based liquidity draw, and what's happening with the price being pushed down is actually a short squeeze. So I'm going to try by tomorrow, if I'm doing the show, to figure out where this guy's research was on that, because that's obviously something we need to pay attention to. The other thing that's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds is really, how does the transition from the importance of the CME expiration at the end of the month going to really evolve as this futures product is now being offered to the institutional clients with the physically settled Bitcoin? Are they going to be interested in doing that, or are they comfortable on the CME? We'll see how that unfolds as well. So yeah, this is pretty cool stuff. I don't think we'll do a tour of that because we probably want to get into some price structure later. But the last article I just wanted, kind of like a feel good, is that CZ from Binance calls for the next altcoin season. This is the difference from 2017. He says that the next one is that one won't just have white papers. Projects in the next season will have products and users. They are still risky investments, but the industry is much healthier now. I don't know how much confidence I have in that personally, but he seems to see some potential in the space as far as altcoins. It's certainly been quite the winter time for a lot of these coins here, but maybe he's just trying to toot his own horn, get some more business onto his exchange, especially in the face of the Bittrex delistings. I think a lot of people have already migrated there. So that's that as far as the news. Real quick, I'll just run down. Yesterday, we talked about long positions that I was taking on Ethereum and Bitcoin. We looked at the 4-hour on Ethereum, and it didn't look like it had broken out just yet, but on the 1 hour it did. And I think we had some fibs drawn where I was interested in getting back in on the long side. I think I was like 60% of my position got filled at this dip down here. I think I had my long at 208. The low on this was 207.5. So doing pretty well on this position here. Didn't get filled down at the bottom for the rest of the position, but that's really why I scatter my bids across these things. Frankly, I was pretty surprised I even got my fill because, you know, the OKCoin guys are listening into the specific areas that we go long. And actually, I saw one poking his head through the window in the house last night, so we had to be have to be crazy. Anyway, so this seems to be working out quite nicely. I think that profit targets, I might have actually exited. So I had some orders to sell at this 217.8. So I assume I'm out of this position. I didn't check yet, but I should be pretty much done here. Willie's getting to overbought. Not quite there just yet, maybe a little more to go. But I think I've probably taken off more than half the position at this point. So that was a nice trade here. And I think Bitcoin also, I didn't directly trade this. I didn't have time to enter my orders on this. I had traded it through Ethereum instead. But you can see we had that 4-hour breakout into the start of the brief yesterday. And things looked really nice with that bullish divergence. And sure enough, we're hitting just shy of that 61.8 level. I think we were talking last night with a couple of guys that we were looking at some charts at the table. I think Raph and I were going through some charts, and a couple of others were coming through and checking out TradingView on our phones. And we really like the 10.3 to 10,800 level. 10.3 is just shy of 61.8 here. And that's a fib drawn from, oh no, I pushed the wrong button. But you can see that those fibs are measuring the 61.8 and 78.6 levels at 10,300 and 10,800 on OKX. Just draw your fibs on whatever exchange you are using. And I think that, you know, that 10.8 level looks really attractive. That's where the 200 period moving average is sitting. It's kind of like a reasonable level where I'd be taking profits as far as if I had taken this long on the 4 hour. You can see that the moving averages did cross bullishly later in the afternoon yesterday or into the evening. And hey, maybe we'll be looking for some continuation. But going into Fed, it's going to be a wild ride here. So I'd certainly be careful trading. Brian said don't trust the first hour. I'd argue don't trust the whole damn day at this point. I think this is some crazy policy that's going to be changed. So that's what's happening right now. Again, I like that actual 10,003 to 10.5. I know that 786 is 10.8, but this is kind of like your head and shoulders breakdown level, also market structure top neckline levels. I think this is a reasonable place for price to run into some serious resistance to the upside, especially on the 4 hour. The daily still doesn't show anything too bullish. We're actually battling with that daily breakdown and retesting levels as far as that's concerned. So that's my view. I'll let Brian take over here and discuss. He was pretty excited that the algo spit out a nice long level. So Brian, why don't you take it away and show everyone how great the algo's doing. You're on mute, by the way.
All right, sorry about that. Of course, I'd have a phone call come in just exactly at the moment that you wanted to hand off this. So I apologize. You might actually hear the phone ring here in the background. Jeez, look at that silver coming off here. I guess the comments that I would make about crypto, and actually, I need you, I really would like to, because that insurance company had to call me, so I really would like to try and get this. So can you just maybe talk for another 30 seconds? Hello.
Yep. All right. So why don't you mute yourself there? Thank you. All right. So what should we talk about? Let's go to Litecoin. We talked about Litecoin yesterday, and we had that article today. I mean, I don't even think many people are paying attention to Litecoin right now. We were talking at the meetup last night. Nobody's even looking at the charts. I know I talked to Alex B this morning, and he's like, I don't even check out the chart anymore. And really, it's tough to want to do that, especially in the face of that buy the rumor, sell the news situation. But there were some setups working here on the hourly. You got that same market structure. Actually, let's move this to a 4 hour, because remember we looked at Litecoin yesterday and it hadn't quite confirmed that 4 hour, but now we've got it. That was in the face of a bullish divergence as you got this FU tail down here. And where did the MACD go? There it goes, comes back. So, I mean, is there a trade on Litecoin? Like, can we already assume that the buy the rumor, sell the news event has played out? It's hard to say, right? The halvening's coming up again. Do people really put that much value into Litecoin? What's it used for? All that kind of talk. I don't really know. Maybe we should take a look at some of the alts while Brian's dealing with his fender bender situation. Let's see, Coinbase names. There, that's there. So let's take a look at, you know, a couple of the US dollar pairs. Got this ZRX. How's this look on the daily? This looked like shit last week. Trying to put in a bottom right now, but it sure looks crappy, right? You've got this potential top here. Did this make new lows? Lows 21.4875. This is 21.5. Okay, so this did not make new lows. Okay, so that's interesting. But I mean, is there a trade here? Definitely not. Not on the daily. And if you zoom out, you can see we're in really dangerous territory. But this thing's trying to pick itself up off of the edge of the cliff. Let's see what Ripple's doing. Is there a trade on this thing? Ripple looks a little bit better, but no divs, nothing too exciting here. Maybe we could put in a potential market structure bottom here, but nothing too exciting. I was looking at BAB last night, which I think is that Craig Wright thing. So I don't even know why that was in my watch list. I think that's in my OKX. I don't know if anyone's trading this thing or even wants to trade it, but if you take a look at this thing on a daily, This is putting in a bottom on the daily chart. Do we have a div to work with is the other question, and I don't think we do. So this is a tougher trade to take, but this thing just won't give up. It's not dying, and Craig Wright was in the news today where he had sued Roger Ver in UK court for defamation, and the UK dismissed his case and told him to get lost, and he had no jurisdiction. Really interesting, this thing's bottoming off of 61.8, areas where this thing last formed a bottom. Hey, I mean, if you're into trading this thing and you want to trade because you want to, oh no, this is not the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. This is the Roger Ver coin. So this is Bitcoin Cash, the Bitcoin ABC, the non-Craig Wright coin. Excuse me. BSV is Craig Wright's coin. So this one looks pretty decent from a market structure standpoint and the levels that it's trying to bottom off of. I mean, sure, lots of people would like to see this get all the way down to 78.6, but doesn't look like it's going to give that entry there. So that's an interesting idea to take a look at. Let's look at BSV. This looks like garbage right now. Nice V bottom here. We all know what's going to happen with V bottoms, probably end up coming back down there and retesting that. What else can we look at? You know, it's interesting. I saw an article from Tether that they spent $500,000 on legal fees to try to defend themselves in New York court. So, you know, they've got a lot invested in making sure that that ship does not sink. Let's see what else we can do. Lumen, XLM, sitting at 8 cents. You know, the same thing, like a lot of these alts just they're just sitting at the edge of a cliff here. It's like, do I jump and make new lows, or do I pick myself up off the ground? You can see the bull div is kind of played out in the absence of any market structure or follow through. But if we can get some real buying going through the Bitcoin market, which will trickle into the other markets, I think we could probably bounce and put in those structures across the board. But I think it's way too early for anyone, even myself, to play something like that. GNT, this looks interesting. Kind of like a market structure bottom, retesting necklines. But again, we're really missing across the board on these USD pairs a lack of bullish divergence. So that's kind of worrisome as far as potentials to blast off to new highs, double ideas. You know, that without that, it's really hard to take positions because you're kind of missing your third reason. BAT, this looks a little bit different, kind of long-term bullish div market structure. This one actually looks a lot better than the other ones. You can see where this thing bottomed. Look, the left ideas. The cool thing is that came right into this level here back in March. So that's an interesting thing. Is that you, Brian, humming in the background?
I can't, I swear my, I don't know what it is about this crazy fender bender nonsense. It's just fighting with cell phones. And unfortunately, Brian's a Mr. 1980s guy, so I want to get my charts in the mail, damn it. I'll try and add a little bit to what you're saying. I mean, great commentary. Thank you so much for filling in for my, pig-headedness, idiocy. This Bitcoin trade, if you will, the algo spat up a signal. I don't, like I said, I'm using Alex's computer, so I don't have that just off the top of my head, but you can sort of see it here. We came down against the bottom end of a range, and actually what was really cool about this Bitcoin chart was if you actually look at the futures contracts, and, like, I hate to say it, but I think, Chicago and New York, they're running this story now. You can see how we came back down against previous historical support and resistance, but surprised we didn't fill this gap in. I mean, somebody just does not want the market to go down into there. So we bounced into this level and then bounced into this level, reload zones within reload zones, all that kind of talk. I can completely understand why guys were hunting trades in this level. It doesn't surprise me one bit. Is this the kind of trade that we would really recommend, like, new people to trading to take? I don't think so. I think this has got to be fairly advanced, and the algo signal that we were speaking about earlier was really off of the lower time frames. I actually kind of think people, it's not a bad idea, like, especially if you're new to trading, that you sort of work down, okay, what's the weekly chart saying? Is it bullet buy or sell? If it's sell, then maybe just cool your jets on thinking about buys. Then work down to the dailies, then work down to the 4 hours, et cetera, et cetera. If you are thinking about taking these kind of algo signals here, you have to understand that you're staring at a big fat M right in your face, right? And also, too, interesting, Alex is pointing out that maybe potential harmonic patterns here. But what I will say is that if we do go down to that 4-hour chart, I can understand the trade. In essence, those are those tests, and now we're looking at this bit mix swap. So of course, every market's going to look slightly different. There is 50%. There's that big fat M, right? What are we supposed to be thinking if we ever see M's, smiles in the market? And what's interesting is I drove both 50% levels. So I drew 50% off of this range and then 50% off of this bigger range. And it sort of creates this sort of confluence area. And I have a sneaky suspicion that they want to move the market up into this level just to relieve the short-term oversold condition. And really, you can see there is the predominant trend line of the market. So really, we should be thinking about some sort of stab up into here. How does that look? That's, of course, open for debate. So I could understand for like the traders, lower time frames thinking, well, the indicators, the internals of the market, and I just happen to have on MACD here. Hopefully everybody can see the W, and in essence, we're making lower lows, but higher lows. So MACD puts in its bullish divergence. It doesn't surprise me that the algo is starting to point up. I think actually it produced a cute little signal, right? And that was basically on that bar right there where the algo fires a bull. I can't show you it, but when I get my computer back up and running, we can talk about that later on. What I also saw too, which is kind of cool, is you notice this little study that I've thrown on here. And you see that the 100% target is that 50% level. Basically, there's a bunch of trap bulls up in here that would like release. So that's sort of our ultimate target of this move, but I've thrown on 50%, 66, think bot trading rules, and notice how the market came up. And what was really cool off of this is it's might be hard to see the color, but that says 10,141 as the 50% level. And notice that the high here today, 10,146. So in essence, if you apply sort of bot trading rules to this, and I know a lot of people that, want to try and keep as much hair on the top of their head, want to try and prevent going gray early. If we can get to the point where we have in our model where it just simply says, look at now I get to move my stop to scratch. Let's say you got long off of this level, which was what, 9,700. At the very least, you move your stop to scratch. And if the market craps out here, all right, well, fine, just walk away at scratch. Next bus in 10 minutes, that kind of talk. So I think that little lower time frame trade is working. I don't know whether it's really in the best interest of new people to trading to counter trade this higher time frame big fat M. Might be a little dangerous, but here's a really good example, the application of the bot trading rules, where had you taken this lower time frame setup, keep in mind my comment earlier about the bond market looking a little bit toppy, gold and silver looking a little toppy. We talk about the bonds, the metals, and Bitcoin all sort of looking very correlated. It wouldn't shock me through this Fed event, we actually see some pretty wild action here on Bitcoin, and then maybe in the next few days, we have the buy the rumor, then of course sell the news on backed and that kind of stuff. Maybe that's sort of the end of the event, and of course, the cherry on the top of the cake is Goldman Sachs comes out and says, buy Bitcoin. That's sort of your ultimate, tell, if you will. So, caveat emptor, if you built your plan to trade things like algo signals off of lower timeframes, great, live by the sword, die by the sword. Do like the idea that the bot trading rules have actually said on this algo setup, move your stop to scratch. We'll see how this plays out, and I can completely understand lower time frame players hunting longs in here, but I think it's important to note that off the daily charts we still have a lot of cleaning up here to do, and all we've really done off of things like the daily charts is just simply come back against a really important key horizontal support and resistance level. You can see big old gaps up top here that could easily be filled in. So, the only other thing I thought I'd add to this, which was kind of cute, it looks to me like Litecoin and Ethereum. It's almost like this is like program trading now. They actually look very, very similar, all three of these. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it's like a program trade by like a Merrill or a Goldman or a JP Morgan or whatever, and they just start accumulating all of them. But, we had kind of fun talk about, things like Overstock has continued to move higher. We won't get into this particular options math, but in essence right now, basically the stock is actually where I sold the option. It'd be interesting to see where the option is. But intrinsic value, that's fine. But I won't get into Overstock today. But, interesting commentary. If you stuck with the Overstock, you got yourself free position. You're laughing, of course. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, I thought it was kind of cute, was this Tron. And I just happened to pull up the chart on the dailies. And this is actually coming into a very interesting trade location. So you can see the down move. Some site members were like, oh, yeah, I want to hunt along. And we're like, whoa, cool your jets. So you can see we've come down into reload zones. We've actually started to turn here. And just like I said, with Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, if we go into a program trade mode, I wouldn't be surprised if people come in on the long side on this thing. And notice that we've actually got this cute little W trying to form here, down, up, down, and she's trying to break out. So, this is actually now where I would argue that the risk of actually taking a trade on this Tron is actually starting to look attractive. So what does that number say? 0.022 and 0.020. So in essence, you're going to risk about 10% on the trade, looking to buy the 78.6. You got a cute little W trying to come in on RSI. Yeah, maybe we can get Julian to take a look at that during his contributions down the road and what he sees out of RSI. I could easily see a nice little move up into RSI against these trend line levels up into this area here. Didn't really get anything solid MACD wise here, but at the same time too, it's not looking negative. And cute little W right there on RSI. I suppose we could probably pull up Willie and stuff like that, but like I said, I'm operating off Alex's computer. But trade location wise, if you are a Tron fan, actually now I think is the time when, if you are interested and you want to get in on a name and you want to take a shot against the lows, we're starting to see some interesting setups here. So there's something for everybody to chew on. Okay, I'm sure I went way over time. My apologies, everybody. Thank you so much, Thomas, for your contributions. And Mr. Mayor, what do you think we should do next? I guess, Thomas, was there anything else you'd like to add to this?
Nope. We'll see everyone in a few hours.
Okay. Yeah, as I understand, I'll be leisurely riding my beach bike around the seawall, and Thomas will be scaling the mountains of British Columbia.
While listening to Jerome Powell.
Oh, okay. Well, if he says something too shocking, don't lose your grip.
What? Half point cut? Thomas falls off the mountain.
That was not in the script. Yeah, just be careful. And, just everybody who's going up the grouse grind, pace yourself, take lots of water. And I actually recommend everybody take a backpack and take an extra set of clothes like track pants or maybe a sweater or something like that. Because keep in mind, up at the top of the mountains here locally, there's still actually some snow up there. So if, heaven forbid, you get separated from the group, you get off the trail, you actually get trapped on the mountain, you have to understand that people can get really hurt very easily and very quickly with the change of conditions up there. So be careful, everybody, and take like a sweater or like a pair of pants or something in a tracks, in a backpack, just in case. You don't want to get caught and get hurt up there. So just be careful, everyone. All right. Well, there's a nice little sobering reminder.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, I worry about all of you guys. You're all my babies. So And I just, if everybody's at the Vancouver meetup, really what my number one priority here is all of you guys have fun. PMA for the win. I was exceedingly pleased to see that the couples have done well in relocating themselves and getting into some nice digs. And everybody should have big smiles on their faces. That's absolutely priority number one for me here. So I think I'll stop talking now. I'm blah, blah, blahing. So have yourselves a great day, everybody. Mr. Mayor, if you feel like we're done, you could take us out of here.
Sure.
All right.